The new Resident Evil sucks. It sucks more than the older films with Mia Jovovich, and it sucks more than the Umbrella Corps game that no one liked. It's really that bad. The writing is preachy and cynical. A plot outside of the main character running away from Umbrella doesn't exist. The twists and reveals are underwhelming, and the action is very boring. Now, if you aren't familiar with Resident Evil, then you've stumbled onto a very beloved IP, heavily embedded in meme and gaming culture. There are elements of the games present in this show and Easter eggs that they try to please us with, etc., but those are quickly glossed over by the monstrosity that they thought was a comprehensible story. It's not comprehensible at all. It's just a bunch of nonsense, just piled together. I really don't know what it was. The story of Netflix's Resident Evil revolves around Jade Wesker and her sister Billy, who are somehow twins and are the daughters of an unnecessarily race-swapped Albert Wesker. The show jumps back and forth constantly between timelines to explain Jade and her sister's upbringing in Raccoon City, which is mostly just over-the-top teenage drama, with a little bit of Resident Evil lore sprinkled in. Now, this is in contrast to a much darker future in the year 2036, where a now adult Jade is just trying to escape Umbrella for the entirety of the show in a now post-apocalyptic world, transitioning endlessly from zombie fight to zombie fight. It's just like a bunch of uninspired set pieces made to look better via the excessive use of shaky cam and really crappy CGI. It's just bad. It's so uneven. You know, sometimes you'll think that it's good, and then other times you'll just be like, what the hell were these guys thinking? I don't know. Anyway, it's filmed no differently than any of Paul W.S. Anderson's RE films, which is really insulting. I mean, 20 years and no improvement? I don't know, man. Right off the bat, the characters are so incredibly unlikable. I have no doubt that the majority of people who watch this show will despise Jade Wesker. I mean, she may be one of the worst decisions I've ever seen made by a showrunner. Yes, even worse than Reva from the Kenobi series. And it's not just that this show is a bad Resident Evil entry, it's also quite simply not Resident Evil. This is basically just a show with Resident Evil tacked on. I mean, the story and the characters have all been completely switched around. It's not the same story. There's no Mansion, there's no Chris Redfield. Albert Wesker is not a white, sunglasses wearing, blonde, slick haired badass who goes around like just karate chopping people. No, this Wesker in this show is a weak, frail, bad father. That's who he is. Yeah. There were moments I had forgotten I was even watching a series about zombies and Umbrella because of how much CW style teen drama dominates this show as well. It's just not Resident Evil. I mean, these girls are pulling pranks on other kids. They're dealing with like bullying issues, things that are just not Resident Evil stuff. Like, this is the kind of stuff that you would put in a show if you had nothing else. But there is so much material. I mean, this stuff doesn't make sense to me. How did they drop the ball on this? Like, who greenlit this abomination of a show? I don't get it. This is just some other zombie show. There aren't enough giant caterpillars, lickers, or umbrella symbols in the world that would change my mind about that. In fact, I'm 95% sure that the very purpose of the caterpillar and the spider, crocodile, or whatever were to distract us from what appears to be a malicious attack on fans. I mean, we've been telling these people how to make these movies for 20 years, but for some reason, they just can't, they can't muster up the courage to just say, we want to make good old-fashioned entertainment using an IP that everybody loves, and we want to stay faithful to it. But no, they don't want to do that. They just want to piss everyone off, I guess. I can't for the life of me understand why they made this series. What was the point? Who did they make this for? They certainly didn't make it for Resident Evil fans because it has nothing to do with the video games. The plot feels like it was written by a child. A child who wanted to tell their politically charged coming-of-age story about, about transcending societal norms and talking about Elon Musk and about white kids and all this stuff. It's just so dumb. They would rather give us garbage that we got in this show than a faithful adaptation of one of the most successful game franchises in the industry. The show makes so many mistakes that the movies before it have already made. And it makes all of those mistakes in the first episode. All of them. In one episode and onward, It fails to scare you. It fails to land a hook with its storytelling approach. If you can even say that they approached it with storytelling in mind, I don't think they did. And they can't even decide what show they even want to be. I mean, it teeters between the campy and dramatic constantly. Like you can't tell if it's a campy show or if it's a dramatic show, serious. Like it hits you with so many unexpected things that don't align with the theme and the atmosphere of the show. And it just ruins the whole thing. Okay, and when I say dramatic, I mean the main character, as dislikable as she is, just chewing everybody out, like the whole show. It's just so stupid. You can actually hone in on where the show plans to go within the first few minutes of Jade's past, where she makes openly racist remarks about the low number of blacks in a not so subtle, all-white neighborhood. And this all-white neighborhood is Raccoon City. Raccoon City isn't actually a city in this show. It's just like this huge gated community full of only white people. And Albert Wesker and his daughters are the only blacks. And then Jade is just like upset and she's screaming and talking about, I can't believe that there's only 5 of us here. We're outnumbered. Her first few lines of dialogue explain that climate change would have ended the world first, if not for the T-virus. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's ridiculous. And I can't see her as a good person, let alone as a mother with a child and a husband as an adult. I only see her as a selfish human being, one suffering from extreme anger management issues. She treats her father like crap for no reason at all. None. Just screams at him, curses like a sailor. At one point, she's like, I can't wait to do heroin. She's ungrateful to others when they save her life, puts others down when they confront her, but most importantly of all, she is a psychological manipulator and abuser who is never there for her emotionally unstable sister when she's needed. But she's an opportunist at every turn and will, without regret, let her sister take the fall. If you took Jade out of the show, it would probably be far better received. I mean, she appears to be the only character that refuses to live in this world that she's been placed in. Jade Wesker is not on the same wavelength during conversations as everyone else. It's almost as if she was the only one unaware that she is a Resident Evil character. She thinks she's in a completely different movie. Everyone else is just trying to be like, hey, come on, it's Resident Evil. We're trying to do Resident Evil things. And Jade is just like, you're stupid. I hate you, Dad. What are you doing? Stop it. I'm like, oh my God, just like let the Resident Evil show just Resident Evil. Okay? But no, we don't get that. We get Jade for the whole show. And I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that we hate her. No one likes her. It has nothing to do with her color, has nothing to do with the fact that she's a female. She's just annoying and unlikable, and she makes stupid, horrible decisions the entire show. Her peers have immersed themselves, albeit poorly, into their roles, but Jade simply does not belong thematically or cinematically in this universe, and that idea is reinforced as the show rolls along mindlessly along a path of cliche-fueled insanity. The original Resident Evil game's plot, the zombie mansion, slow-moving zombies, claustrophobic hallways wrapped up into an engaging plot about Umbrella, Chris Redfield, and his team. It can't be that difficult. You could accomplish this with a much smaller budget, easily. And there are, I can confidently claim without evidence, millions of people on this earth that could do a far better job than the steaming pile of trash that this attempt was. Netflix even had the opportunity to use the 2021 film. I mean, they had a template. They had a framework to work with. Welcome to Raccoon City. You remember that? And we came out like a year or two ago, and it was crap, but they did try. I mean, they could have used it as a reference guide or even remake it, fix the parts that sucked. I don't know, like anything but whatever this idea was, whatever ideas were exchanged in their ice-cold, oak-furnished conference rooms. There's just no longer any excuse that these streaming platforms, and especially Hollywood, has to justify destroying franchise after franchise after franchise over and over again, while fighting with the fan bases daily to push narratives and ideas that no one wants, to cater to forces who at this point in time can no longer benefit them, or us for that matter. And for what? How accomplished can these people feel watching their stocks plummet, or their reputations being dragged through the mud on a daily basis? Is the message really worth completely annihilating your credibility for the rest of your career? Because that's what's happening. I mean, it says it right here. People don't like the series. I mean, look at that ratio. Audiences on YouTube hated it. The aggregate for critics are a resounding rejection. Audiences hate it too. So the opinion is highly not in favor. My question is this. Now that criticism for this series and its flaws are widespread, are platforms like Netflix going to take responsibility for this? For their horrible ideas to wokeify everything, including Resident Evil, which is just not something that you even need to wokeify? Or are they going to blame the audiences for not being open-minded or open to strong black women who carry entire TV shows by themselves, or any other crap excuse they've used for other shows like Kenobi? And Resident Evil fans, a question for you, and I consider myself a fan as well. Are you okay with seeing your favorite franchise villain, Albert Wesker, being reduced to nothing more than a workaholic who can barely operate as a human to his own daughters, who can't protect his own workplace or solve basic problems? I mean, he's no longer a villain, but now he's an afterthought. It feels like an afterthought, a supporting character to more unlikable, annoying, and badly written characters, like his lesbian boss, whose purpose in the show is to be bad at her job, bad in her marriage to another woman. There's a scene where she just starts dancing. And of course, for the sake of the plot, there's a reason that she dances, but it's a stupid reason. It still takes up so much time, and I don't even know how long I can go talking about this show, because there's really nothing good to say about it. There are a couple good things, and they are so far and few between. It's hard. It's hard to pinpoint. Wesker is also a supporting character to Jade and Billy Wesker too, which no one has ever heard of these two. They've never asked for Jade and Billy. No one ever asked for these. I mean, do you enjoy watching teenage girls' drama-filled lives for literally half of each episode? Half of the episode is two teenage girls struggling with teenage stuff. That's half of the show of Resident Evil. Albert Wesker spends the majority of the show being yelled at and silenced by his daughters and boss. Every time he throws an inkling of logic in their direction, Albert Wesker's supposed to be this really smart, like really intellectual being who is a master strategist, okay? Like a military grade level strategist. And for some reason, they just let this idiot run Umbrella, and she runs it straight into the ground almost immediately. Not in a way that makes sense, like an accidental outbreak, but it's just, it doesn't make sense. That's all I can say about it. Like the reason that Umbrella falls is a stupid reason. I mean, the violence is subpar too. They went really light on the violence this time around. There's no blood, almost. I mean, there's a little bit, but I mean, this is a zombie show. I mean, people should be getting ripped apart, but you really don't see that. I don't know. But hey, don't worry about it, all right? There's nothing to worry about, because the more people that become aware of what Hollywood is doing, and believe me, we all know what you're doing, Hollywood. We're not dumb. The ability that we have to share information and to communicate with each other due to social media, which you are constantly manipulating and messing with to cover up your failed projects, the worse things become for them as they continue to inject their meaningless political agenda into everything that we consume, including our favorite video games and movies. Only time will tell, but they've already caused so much destruction. I wouldn't be surprised if they take a huge financial hit from this. And from what I was hearing the other day, Netflix lost 1 million subscribers in, I think, the second quarter of this year. They lost a lot of subscribers. People don't want to watch this garbage anymore. We're tired of it. We're stressed out. We're frustrated. And people are going more and more ham with their criticisms on these trash shows. They're being even more harsh and more critical as time goes on, because Hollywood and Netflix and other streaming platforms, they don't learn. They continue to push this nonsense. And I know why they do it. I'm pretty sure we all know why they're doing it. But there's not enough room or time in the day to talk about it. It's going to continue to happen. I mean, what was it? Like the first quarter, they lost a few 100,000, then like a few 100,000 again. I mean, it's go time, baby. This is it. I mean, if their shows don't get better at this point, I don't see Netflix surviving. There are plenty of other platforms who are doing a much better job at adapting things. Except for the new Hulu Predator movie, which I'm not excited for. I was, until I heard the one line that everybody heard that made them roll their eyes collectively and made the whole world groan at the same time. People are tired of lazy writing and lazy activist morons in charge of TV shows that they have no business or interest in adapting correctly. I mean, if they at least tried to make it watchable, at the very least. Or if they did their best, but threw in a few woke one-liners, just like, I like this guy and I'm a guy. Fine. I don't see a problem with that. There's not much that we can do to change that as long as it doesn't affect the core of the story. I'm not going to completely write off the show because I find out that one of the characters is gay. My problem is taking that gay character and then making their sexuality the central focal point of the entire TV show, which is so dumb. I'm not saying that Resident Evil did that, but they heavily incorporated all of these different parts of the ideology of the far, far left into the show. I'm not going to write off a show simply for just putting small things in, because I understand how producers weasel their way into things, and the message spreaders who ensure the diversity boxes are checked in small ways to bring in that extra bit of audience to a film or game, which is already great in its own right. And the answer to this problem is not always so simple. They don't always get it right, but you can tell the difference between a filmmaker who bends the knee to corporate messaging and one who only seeks to entertain and build trust with an audience. But what you see in this adaptation is not that. This show is the perfect example of corporate messaging. It's a blatant changing of the story of Resident Evil to accommodate to ideas that nobody wants, but they don't care. They're still doing it. A complete rewrite of character origins, a deconstruction and outright removal of the very essence of Resident Evil, a sacrifice of its heart and soul, made in the name of virtuous signaling, a crippling transition from jump scares to woke stares. And this time around, it feels like its intent is to just piss a lot of people off and to divide everybody. Do yourself a favor. Watch something else. Anything else. It will be more worth your time to do that rather than this. You can watch anything and be thoroughly entertained. Don't do what I did and sit through the entirety of this TV show. Don't do that. Because what you will have accomplished is you will have wasted 8 hours of your life. It's just pathetic. I'm appalled. What can I say? I'm appalled. But I think that covers most of who and what I thought mattered enough in that show to talk about. But I'd love to hear what you all think of today's video. If you enjoyed it, please let me know by smashing that like button and subscribe, of course, if you want to see more of this channel and all the crazy directions it takes. And yeah, you probably may have noticed I made a few visual changes to my content. I've got a few ideas in mind, but I'm enjoying the evolution so far. In the meantime, you're welcome to join my Discord channel if you're into that. Don't be intimidated because it's fairly dead, but that's okay. Because all communities start small, right? So I understand it will take some time, but I'm still excited about that. Anyway, I'm equally excited about my Patreon as well. That is right, I currently have a Patreon page I'm taking the time to flesh out. Obviously, there's a lot going on. I'm gonna save all the jargon for later, and I'll just leave links in the description for you guys to check out. But if supporting a creator like myself is something that you want to do, please check out those links. Any support is certainly welcome and appreciated. Spread the word, share this video if you can. And with that, I hope to see you all at the movies real soon.